Welcome to Real Judaism with Rabbi Klapper. Unfiltered wisdom for Jewish life.
Okay, Bezrat Hashem, we are here on Daf Kuf Mem Zayin, Ois Beis in Perek Tes Vav. We spoke last week about mesiras nefesh. We spoke about the idea of giving away the one thing that you don't have to give away to show hakaras hatov, and doing it willingly because of the kesher that you have to the one who is asking for it. So in our situation, the initial example that Rabbi Pinkus brought was about Moshe Rabbeinu, that Moshe Rabbeinu, the neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu, didn't want to leave Moshe Rabbeinu's body. He was so connected to such a holy body, didn't want to leave. But because of the bris ava that Moshe Rabbeinu and obviously his neshama had with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, he willingly gave up his life just because of the kesher with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. So we ended off right before Ois Beis that Shabbos represents this bris ava. We discussed this earlier in the Sefer also, where it talked about the difference between why goyim can't keep Shabbos. Here we're going to talk about the aspect of mesiras nefesh, of willing to give up something very close to you, giving up your life even because of this bris ava. How does that connect to Shabbos? Legabe Shabbos, we're here in Ois Beis. Legabe Shabbos atzma nemer lahalacha v'chai bahem. The halacha of v'chai bahem is a halacha that many who doing Daf Yomi just saw a couple weeks ago. The din of v'chai bahem is the halacha that a person is not supposed to die and supposed to do an aveira if it comes to a situation where they are in mortal danger and the only way to save themselves is to be over on an aveira. So, for example, if a goy comes to you and says, I'm going to blow your brains out, he takes out a real gun and puts it next to your head, and he says, I'm going to blow your brains out unless you eat this pork. What do you say? Pass the ketchup. Right? You take a big chunk because you are not supposed to die. V'chai bahem, you're supposed to live. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I want you to live. I don't want you to die. So that's a pasuk. We learned that from a pasuk. V'chai bahem, the Gemara in Sanhedrin talks about. So Shabbos also falls into that category. There are only three things that do not fall into that category, and that is avodah zara, gilui arayos, and shfichut damim. And those things are all learned in the Gemara, why they don't fall into that category of v'chai bahem. So those are the big three that a person has to give up their life, yaharg v'al yavu for, and the other mitzvahs of the Torah are a person supposed to live, except for the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem and Chilul Hashem, which the Gemara discusses on the next daf, that in a situation of Kiddush Hashem, also a person should be giving up their life for it. We're not going to go through the whole sugya right now. With regards to Shabbos, a person is supposed to be machal Shabbos if it comes to a dangerous situation, a question of life or death. And as we know, that's almost every single frum community has some form of hatzalah, where there are always situations of pikuach nefesh on Shabbos, and they are machal Shabbos in order to save lives. And that is lefi halacha. Hainu she pikuach nefesh doichle Shabbos. Pikuach nefesh, to save somebody's life, pushes off Shabbos. In fact, it's praiseworthy to be the first one to be machal Shabbos. The first one. You should be the first one to call. Somebody else can do it, so I don't have to do it. No, you should be the first one. Does that mean everybody should be a hatzalah guy? No, not necessarily. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives a different tchunas hanefesh, different nature to each person. Some people are more keen at doing this. Some people are more medically inclined. Some people are more connected to this type of work, and other people aren't. So therefore, whatever kochos HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to each individual person, that's what he has to do to serve Hashem. So some people are like that, and some people are not. So certainly the people who are like that, they're doing a tremendous thing, and the people who aren't like that, well, Hashem gave them different kochos, and they have to use their kochos in order to serve Hashem. So, but if it comes to being machal Hashem, who's going to call hatzalah? So then the quickest one to do it is praiseworthy. Even so, we saw in the previous generations, when Klal Yisrael, Rachmana litzlan, was under was under the dominion of the Nazis for all those years. Ve'etzel harusim yimach shemam, and under the Soviet Union, Arbut Sibir, and they were in Siberia. Many of them were sent to Siberia, and let's just say Siberia is not a walk in the park, So haya koyev lahem biyoser al shayu muchrachim mipnei pikuach nefesh l'chal Shabbos. In many situations, they didn't have a choice. It was the only way to save their lives is that they had to be Machal Shabbos. That was it. It was either be Machal Shabbos or die. And we know halachah is to be Machal Shabbos, but it was tremendously painful for them to do this. And they were individuals. They had tremendous mesiras nefesh to keep Shabbos, even in those most difficult situations. Even now, right? You hear stories about some of the chatufim, the hostages, that come out, and how they were moshe nefesh to keep Shabbos, even in those terrible, terrible situations. Lo aleinu, we shouldn't know from this anymore. But how it was an incredible thing, really, really an inspiring thing. That watch mesiras nefesh to be, and they don't listen. Who knows what these savages could do? But they were moshe nefesh to keep Shabbos. It's an unbelievable thing. And you see, this is something that has passed down in generations of Klal Yisrael. We have the koyach to do it today because our fathers and mothers did it in generations before, and they had it from those before them. But lo nichnas kan lahalacha. We're not here to talk about what is a proper thing to do or not. Be'ilu afanim mutar limsor nafshem b'makom she'eno mechuyav al pidin. What situations are you allowed to? Maybe you're not allowed to. Maybe it's a form of ritzicha. Maybe it's suicidal to do such a thing. When is it mutter? When is it not mutter? So that's not the topic over here. The idea here is the hashkapic piece, and that is we see that there's some form of connection between mesiras nefesh and Shabbos. That was the first paragraph that we discussed in the very beginning of the parak, that the Arizal says from what we say in Mincha, al menucha sam yakdishu et shemecha. For the menucha of Shabbos, people are mekadosh shem shamayim, are nefesh, meaning they were ready to give up their lives. Now, a little bit of an explanation here. Second paragraph. Asiba lechoira sharei al shlosh averos achamuros tzorich limsor nefesh v'chein kisheboyim lahavir al adas tzorich limsor atzmo al kol averos shelo la'abor b'farhesir shelo yichal Hashem. Right? What is the reason for the three averos? Like we just said, and avodah zara, that a person has to be ready to die, or in a situation where a person is there's a fear of being over al adas, which basically means a chil Hashem, kiddush Hashem type experience, where the goyim are trying to get people to leave Yiddishkeit. Right? That was the other shas hashmad, where a person should die al kiddush Hashem, because it would be a tremendous chil Hashem if people would start to leave Yiddishkeit. Meaning, if the reason why the goyim wanted a Jew to do a certain avera, which was not one of the big three averas, rather it was a different avera that wasn't one of these three, but it was done purposely in order to get Jews to leave Yiddishkeit. That would be the other example of a situation where a person would have to die al kiddush Hashem. The Gemara even there says something about the color of a shoelace, even something very innocuous, which may not even be an avera at all. But to leave Yiddishkeit is a very big deal. So if all the goyim, all the very devout, pick whichever religion you want that's left, that's in the world, and they would come along and say, hey, you Jews have to start wearing white shoelaces instead of black shoelaces, and it happens to be that all the people in that religion wear white shoelaces when they go to their church or whatever place of worship, and now you would be associated with that group as one of them, and you'd be becoming part of them, and it's being done in a state type of way where everybody has to do it. So that would be a shas hashmad, where the Jewish people would have to be moshe nefesh, even to die for that. When it comes to these averas that a person has to die, yaharig val yavar, that's what the words mean. Die and don't do these averas. What's the reason? It's because it's connected to our very essence of who we are. It's not shaykh to save yourself by killing yourself, right? I mean, some of these things are is pretty blatant. We say shasa shmad, giving up your Yiddishkeit in order to live is not worth it, because you're basically killing yourself in order to live. So what did you gain? What did you gain by doing that? That would be a shasa shmad. Avodah zara would be that way as well. And obviously, Ritzicha is the classic case of killing for the sake of saving, right? Oh, why by Roidif and Nirdaf is it different? That's not for today. But Ritzicha, the Gemara says, is why would you, if your life's on the line, why would you kill somebody else? I mean, the whole thing is to save yourself. So who says, you're bigger than the other person that you're trying to save? But it's a little bit more complicated than that. It's a little bit more complicated. And Gilui Arayos, also, we don't realize how important proper interrelations between men and women are. It is such a strong foundation of Yiddishkeit, because the most fundamental aspect of Yiddishkeit is the Jewish home. And the Jewish home are the building blocks of the Jewish nation. And if there would be a tainting of the Jewish home, so that would undermine the entire Jewish nation, which is why these Averas would undermine the entire Yiddishkeit. And therefore, that's why a person has to rather die than do them, because it's like you don't have a choice. I mean, either I die or I die. Those are the two options. So better die without doing the Avera than die by doing the Avera. A mashal, an interesting mashal, a person who fell into a pot. Pot's starting to boil. Big pot. Right? This is what happened to Menashe HaMelech. Right? He didn't fall in, he was put into a big pot, and they were going to cook him. Right? And
Golos Kalim.
Golos Kalim, that's right. The thing is that in this mashal, we're not holding yet by the act it's actually boiling yet. But you're right. Right? Golos Kalim coming up in another couple of weeks.
You're saying the size of the pot.
The size of the pot. This probably have to be a bigger pot than those. But yeah, it's the pot's starting to boil. Would you save yourself from jumping out of the pot? El tocha eish haboeres, right? From they say, out of the frying pan and into the fire. Right? Would a person do that? Would you jump out of the frying pan and jump out of this pot that's starting to boil up straight directly into the fire? What did you gain by that? Right? You can't. So too, with regards to these averas that are yaharg val yava, the person has to die for. You're not saving yourself by doing these averas. If anything, you're killing yourself, because the soul of a Jew is much more than just this world. This is the way that those individuals, those tzaddikim, felt when the goyim that were ruling over them were goyzer on them to be mechal Shabbos. That's how they felt. Harei Shabbos hi etzem hakesher im Hashem yisbarach b'dveikus l'mekor hachaim. Shabbos is that the essence of the connection between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is our source of life. Hagam shahalacha einu mechayev es mesiras nefesh. Even though the halacha is that you are not chayev. You are not chayev to give up your life. But I still feel that way. I still feel that I can't do it. How could I be mechal Shabbos? Even to save my own life, how could I do that? Better that I should give up my life for Hashem and for Shabbos. Because that is the source of our life, right? Shabbos coming in, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what Shabbos represents. How could I do that? How could I break Shabbos?
When do our feelings override halachah?
Right. In general, so the halacha is the way it is. The halacha is that no, you're supposed to be machal Shabbos, which is why that same person who had this feeling wouldn't think twice about being machal Shabbos to save somebody else's life. Wouldn't think twice about it. And if he was the one that was sick, and somebody else was machal Shabbos to save him, also wouldn't be that way. Also wouldn't think twice about it. But over here, there was something different. There was a feeling of, I'm being forced to be mechal Shabbos. In this situation, let's say it wasn't a shasa shmad. It's not that they were trying to get us to convert. They weren't trying to get us to convert to become whatever, atheists, whatever they are, right? They're not trying to get us to convert. They're just forcing you to be Machal Shabbos, and if you don't do it, they're just going to kill you. So it was painful. It was such a pain. It was such a pain for these people to have to do that. They'd rather not. I'd rather be mesiras nefesh. Even I'm putting myself into danger. Maybe they'll kill me. But how could I do that to Hashem? It's a little bit of a different matziv. Even though both of them were dealing with a person's life, right? Dealing with saving a person's life. But here, it's a little bit different. What's the difference? The difference is, in the case of Hatzalah, so this person is in danger. And we have to save him. We have to save him. So we have to do certain things which involves Chilul Shabbos in order to save him. Okay? The person has to drive an ambulance. The person has to do some other things in order to save his life. In the other situation, it was the Chilul Shabbos itself, which was what if you're not Mechal Shabbos, you're going to die. It wasn't that the death came about because you weren't Mechal Shabbos. And a person is sick or accident. It's not that you weren't Mechal Shabbos and that's the one that saved him. He got into an accident. He had a heart attack. That's what killed him. Being Mechal Shabbos could have saved him. We're not saying it's the Chilul Shabbos or the non-Chilul Shabbos, I should say, that killed him. But in a situation like this, it was the Shabbos. It was the Shabbos itself that I had to be Mechal Shabbos in order to save my life. It was more of a direct correlation. That's what was painful. How could I do that? Even though the halachah is the same. The halachah is the same. The halachah is, listen, you're supposed to save your life, you're supposed to do this. But how could I do it? Again, we're not talking about the halachah in any particular situation. Some of the questions in the Holocaust are tremendously painful questions and difficult questions. I learned about this. I said it over last year. Sugya in Yevamos, which was one of the nafkaminas that we had in that sugya, was a certain story that happened in the Holocaust. There are a number of svarim written about shilas that occurred in the death camps, and there was this one shaila about that a man asked the Rav. I think it was Rav Meisels that he asked. The story is brought down in a sefer called Begates Hamavis, and in the story. The following thing happened in the story, and the man came to ask the Rav Shaila. It seems that the Nazis rounded up, they did a game without going through exactly what the game was, but they rounded up, I think it was 1,400 young boys, and they put them in one room, they put them in a one building, and all of them were going to be killed the next day. All of them. And everybody knows the Nazis were very medactic on their numbers, everything had to be exact. So bribing the guard to get one out wasn't going to be so simple, because the guard has to be guarding this place. If there's one that's missing, then he's going to get in trouble. They're going to know exactly that they have the exact amount. So bribing the guard would involve getting this person's son out, but then the guard would take somebody else's son, would take a different kid, and kill him instead, kill him in his place. So the question wasn't, can I bribe the guard to save my son? The question was, if I bribe the guard to save my son, the guard's going to take some other kid to kill him. Am I allowed to do that? Am I allowed to bribe the guard in a situation like that? These shilas like this, we shouldn't ever have to deal with. I believe it was Rav Meisels, maybe I got the name wrong, who was asked this shaila. And Bekitzer, he said, don't ask me a shaila like this. I can't answer you. And the father who asked the shaila, by the way, he said it's his only son. Maybe it was his only child even, only son. And the father said that if the Rav can't give me a heter, then I'm not going to do it. This is a question of ritzicha. It's a serious question. The question on this, and that's what happened. Sof Sipur, that's what happened. The Maisa, these are very, very difficult questions, but that's what coming back to mesiras nefesh, even in this case, mesiras nefesh, because I want to do the right thing. And when a person comes to Shabbos, Shabbos is Hashem. We have to, be so careful about your Shabbos. It's like we said, like it's brain surgery. Every little thing makes such a big difference. How could I just totally disregard that? Again, halachah notwithstanding, just the feeling of such a thing, you can understand that a person would how we could feel that, because he's so kashur, such this deep ava with Hashem. In a situation where a person is sick, it is a tremendous avera for a person to hold back and not be machal Shabbos. Person has to be very, very stringent about this. Even a suffix pikuach nefesh is supposed to be machal Shabbos for. But still, we can feel this feeling of being so careful with Shmir Shabbos, and specifically in the most difficult situations. Think about this for a second. The example that he gives, like a person has guests came, something happened. When something went wrong, and he doesn't have a certain dish. He's inviting very chashuv guests. Yeah, the Rav is coming to eat at his house. The Rav of the community is coming to eat at his house, and it turns out that something was forgotten. They forgot to put it on the stove. They forgot to put it in the oven. It's not hot. And he made the person who saw this, and he's going to be tremendously embarrassed that something chashuv, the chicken was not cooked. There's going to be no chicken. There's going to be no meat. Nothing. It's going to be a lot of fish and side dishes. But what happened to the chicken? It was they forgot it. It's not hot. It's not hot. So a person can think of all kinds of heterim, why it's okay, what's okay, and then it can be Michal Shabbos Chas v'Shalom. Why? Because of the pressure. There's tremendous pressure. Obein in a dibur, or let's say with speech. Could go on divrei mekach umemka. Person speaking business on Shabbos. Right? So he had, all of a sudden, bing, it clicked in his head, a great business idea. Something about his business, he can do this and that. And at his meal, of course, he invited his close friend, who's also his business associate, and they're sitting together at the table, and he wants to tell him this idea that he had, so that they can talk about it. And it's inside of him, it's burning. He needs to tell it, to talk about it with him. It's called So we see that when it comes to Shabbos, there are nisyonis in these areas. A person, wow, Shabbos, never. Only to save a life. But at the same time, we're going to end up with situations that are very, very difficult, where, well, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? Right? I'm sure everybody has had the situation where, oops, we forgot to deal with the lights in the refrigerator on Shabbos. And then somebody opens the refrigerator, and obviously that's how you discover that the light is on in the refrigerator. Uh-oh, what do we do now? And what you do, you go ask the Rav. Yeah, that's what you do. That's what you do. Go ask the Rav. What am I supposed to do? Right? Let the Rav give you instructions. Oh, somebody tripped the circuit breakers, no air conditioning. Right? What do we do now? Talk to the Rav. That's what you do. You talk to the Rav. You go ask the Rav. That's what you do. Okay. Is there room to be makel? Don't decide on your own. Go to the Rav and ask him. Person can be more ahead. No, it's okay. This and that and the other thing. And he's embarrassed and wants to take care of it right away. Rahman al-Islam. V'yodim divrei marana Chazon Ish b'sefer Emuni B'tachon Perek Daled. Chazon Ish in his sefer Emuni B'tachon Perek Daled anoigim le'inyan zeh. He discusses this type of idea, where he says, "This is exactly on this issue." What does the Chazon Ish say? Ma'isa bechared echad misug zeh sheba oireach nichbad leiro. There was a certain person who he had a very chashuv guest. V'yibakesh chared levakro bebeitoi. Yeah, he wanted to come visit. Right? This chared, I guess we would call it a fearful man, meaning somebody who fears heaven. And he asked this guest to come visit me. I want you to come visit me. And he said, I'll come visit you Friday night. This fearful man, the chared, was very excited. He was very happy. Wow, this very chashuv guest is going to come and visit me on Shabbos. Ma asa satan. And what does the satan do? Hishkichu lahosif neft benero. He, at the time, the only way to have light was an oil lamp, and the satan made this God-fearing man forget to put extra oil in the lamp. From Thursday night, he lit it with whatever was left from Thursday night, very little oil. And now what happens is he remembers, I didn't put in any oil. And these long winter nights, and I don't know when my guest is going to come. It could be 2, 3, 4 hours from now, and lights are going to be off. And this God-fearing man, he can't control himself. Is so embarrassed if the guest would come with later on that night there would be no lights. So he added oil. He added oil on Leil Shabbos. This is why is the Pinkus bringing these stories down? Because in our situations, we're not, Baruch Hashem, we're not in right now, Baruch Hashem, not in the Shas Hashmad. Not in the Shas Hashmad. We're not in a situation where goyim are coming over to us and say, convert to Christianity, otherwise we're gonna kill you, right? And then we're not in a situation where Baruch Hashem, people are, get up a gun to your head saying, if you don't kill that guy, I'm gonna kill you. But we are in situations where we have our own difficulties, we have our own challenges, certainly with regard to Chilul Shabbos. And we don't even realize that, these it was such a little thing, but that's a real Chilul Shabbos. And what's it in the face of? It's in the face of embarrassment. It's in the face of convenience, or it's in the face of difficulty. Right? More than once. Remember sitting in the dark on Shabbos, right? When the generator goes out and you think it's going to turn back on, but it doesn't necessarily turn back on. And you're sitting there in the dark. And all it takes is a flip of a switch, and then you got all your power back, and the kids are complaining, and it's hot and it's stuffy, and everything is, you're worried that everything in the freezer is going to go bad. So these are places of mesiras nefesh. When we're talking about it outside, it sounds like, how could a person do that? But when you're in that situation itself, it is quite challenging. It is very, very challenging. It is not so much fun to knock on a goy's door and try to figure out how to tell them in a way that's mutter, the way that the Rav told you. I remember many years ago when I was at my brother's Alfruf, and accidentally we left on my bedroom light. And it was in a rainy fall, I think it was in November in New York. And I remember standing outside on the corner and trying to get some goy to come, because I told them that I left my bedroom light on and I can't sleep. I remember more than one person running away from us as we were standing there in our trench coats. And finally, after we being out there for a very long time, we finally found somebody who was happy to come. And on the way back, we asked him, well, by the way, are you Jewish? And he said, yes. The kids had slept with the light on that night. So yeah, it's very challenging. It's very, very challenging. These are our nisyonos. This is a situation where we have our nisyonos. It's dafka in these situations where a person has to really be mesiras nefesh. But we have that koyach. We have the koyach to be mesiras nefesh. And that's the Kodesh Baruch Hu for Shabbos wants us to be mesiras nefesh. We're not giving up our lives per se. It is only either embarrassment, inconvenience, or some other form of difficulty. We're not giving up our lives mamish. But we have to remember, even these difficulties, we have it in our koyach to do this, to stand up for the kavod of Shabbos, to be mesiras nefesh in our little way, in order to serve Hashem properly. Okay, let's finish over here. Go.
Thank you for joining Real Judaism, where we explore Torah's wisdom for real life. Created by J Foundations and produced by Ellie Podcast Productions. Find more episodes at realjudaism.org and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.